Bible in a Year, the Message Version, March 23, Numbers, chapter 36, verse 1 through Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 46. The heads of the ancestral clan of Gilead, son of Machir, the son of Manasseh, they were from the clans of the descendant of Joseph, approached Moses and the leaders who were heads of the family of the people of Israel. They said, "When God commanded my master to hand over the inheritance lands by law to the people of Israel, my master was also commanded by God to hand over the inheritance land of Zebbepheled, our brother, to his daughters. But what happens if they marry into another tribe in the people of Israel? Their inheritance land will be taken out of our ancestral tribe and get added into the tribe into which they married. And then, when the year of Jubilee comes for the people of Israel, their inheritance will be lumped in with the inheritance of the tribes into which they married. Their land will be removed from our ancestral inheritance." Moses, at God's command, issued this order to the people of Israel. What the tribe of the sons of Joseph says is right. This is God's command to Zelophehad's daughters. They are free to marry anyone they choose as long as they marry within their ancestral clan. Their inheritance land of the people of Israel must not get passed around from tribe to tribe. No, keep the tribal inheritance land in the family. Every daughter who inherits land, regardless of the tribe she's in, must marry a man from within her father's tribal clan. Every Israelite is responsible for making sure the inheritance stays within the ancestral tribe. No inheritance land may be passed from tribe to tribe. Each tribe of the people of Israel must hold tight to its own land. Zelophehad's daughters did just as God commanded Moses. Milah, Tirzah, Hoglah, Milcah, and Noah, Zelophehad's daughters, all married their cousins on their father's side. They married within the families of Manasseh, son of Joseph, and their inheritance lands stayed in their father's family. These are the commands and regulations that God commanded through the authority of Moses to the people of Israel on the plains of Moab at Jordan, Jericho. These are the sermons Moses preached to all Israel when they were east of the Jordan River in the Arabah wilderness, opposite Suph, in the vicinity of Paran, Tafali, Laban, Hazeroth, and Dizahab. It takes 11 days to travel from Horeb to Kadesh, following the Mount Sur route. It was on the first day of the 11th month of the 14th year when Moses addressed the people of Israel, telling them everything God had commanded him concerning them. This came after he had defeated Sihon, king of the Amorites, who ruled from Heshbon, and Og, king of Bashan, who ruled from Ashtaroth in Adri. It was east of the Jordan in the land of Moab that Moses set out to explain this revelation. He said, "Back in Horeb, God our God spoke to us. You've stayed long enough at this mountain. On your way now, get moving. Head for the Amorite hills, wherever people are living in the Arabath, the mountains, the foothills, Negev, the seashore, the Canaanite country, and the Lebanon, all the way to the big river, the Euphrates. Look, I've given you this land. Now go in and take it. It's the land God promised to give your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and their children after them. At the time I told you, I can't do this, can't carry you all by myself. God, your God, has multiplied your numbers. Why, look at you. You rival the stars in the sky. And may God, the God of your fathers, keep it up and multiply you another 1,000 times, bless you just as he promised. But how can I carry, all by myself, your troubles and burdens and quarrels? So select some wise, understanding, and seasoned men from your tribes, and I will commission them as your leaders." You answered me, "Good, a good solution." So I went ahead and took the top men of your tribes, wise and seasoned, and made them your leaders of thousands, of hundreds, of fifties, and of tens, officials adequate for each of your tribes. At the same time, I gave orders to your judges. Listen carefully to complaints and accusations between your fellow Israelites. Judge fairly between each person and his fellow or foreigner. Don't play favorites. Treat the little and the big alike. Listen carefully to each. Don't be impressed by big names. This is God's judgment you're dealing with. Hard cases you can bring to me. I'll deal with them. I issued orders to you at the time regarding everything you would have to deal with. Then we set out from Horeb and headed for the Amorite hill country, going through that huge and frightening wilderness that you've had more than an eyeful of by now. All under the command of God, our God, and finally arrived at Kadesh. There, I told you, you've made it to the Amorite hill country that God, our God, is giving us. Look, God your God has placed this land as a gift before you. Go ahead and take it now. God, the God of your fathers, promised it to you. Don't be afraid. Don't lose heart. But then you all came to me and said, let's send some men on ahead to scout out the land for us and bring back a report on the best route to take and the kinds of towns that we can expect to find. It seemed like a good idea to me, so I picked 12 men, one from each tribe. They set out climbing through the hills. They came to the Eshcol Valley and looked it over. They took samples of the produce of the land and brought them back to us, saying, "It is a good land that God, our God, is giving us." But then you weren't willing to go up. You rebelled against God, your God's plain word. You complained in your tents. God hates us. He hauled us out in Egypt in order to dump us among the Amorites, a death sentence for sure. How can we go up? We're trapped in a dead end. Our brothers took all the wind out of our sails, telling us the people are bigger and stronger than we are. Their cities are huge, their defenses massive. And when we saw Anakite giants there, death sentence for sure. I tried to relieve your fears. Don't be terrified of them. God, your God, is leading the way. He's fighting for you. You saw with your own eyes what he did for you in Egypt. You saw what he did in the wilderness. How can God, your God, carried you as a father carrying his child, carried you the whole way until you arrived here? But now that you're here, you won't trust God, your God? The same God who goes ahead of you in your travels to scout out a place to pitch a camp, a fire by night and a cloud by day to show you the way to go? When God heard what you said, he exploded in anger. He swore, not a single person of this evil generation is going to get so much as a look at the good land that I promised to give to your parents. Not one, except for Caleb, son of Jephunneh. He'll see it. I'll give him and his descendants the land he walked on because he was all for following God, heart and soul. But I also got it because of you. God's anger spilled over onto me. He said, you aren't getting in either. Your assistant, Joshua, son of Nun, will go in. Build up his courage. He's the one who will claim the inheritance for Israel. And your babies, of whom you said they'll be grabbed for plunder, and all these little kids who right now don't even know right from wrong, they'll get in. I'll give it to them, yes. They'll be the new owners, but not you. Turn around and head back into the wilderness, following the route to the Red Sea. You spoke up. We've sinned against God. We'll go up and fight, following all the orders of God. Our God has commanded us. You took your weapons and dressed for battle. You thought it would be so easy going into those hills. But God told me, tell them, don't do it. Don't go up to fight. I'm not with you in this. Your enemies will waste you. I told you, but you wouldn't listen. You rebelled at the plain word of God. You threw out your chest and strutted into the hills, and those Amorites who had lived in those hills all their lives swarmed all over you like a hive of bees, chasing you from Seir all the way to Hormah, a stinging defeat. You came back and wept in the presence of God, but He didn't pay a bit of attention to you. God didn't give you the time of day. You stayed there at Kadesh a long time, about as long as you had stayed there earlier. Luke chapter 5, verse 29 through chapter 6, verse 11. Levi gave a large dinner at his house for Jesus. Everybody there, taxmen and other disrespectable characters, as guests at the dinner. The Pharisees and the religion scholars came to his disciples, greatly offended. What is he doing, eating and drinking with misfits and sinners? Jesus heard about it and spoke up. Who needs a doctor, the healthy or the sick? I'm here inviting outsiders, not insiders, an invitation to a changed life, changed inside and out. They asked him, John's disciples are well known for keeping fast and saying prayers, also the Pharisees. But you seem to spend most of your time at parties. Why? Jesus said, when you're celebrating a wedding, you don't skimp on the cake and wine, you feast. Later, you may need to exercise moderation, but this isn't the time. As long as the bride and the groom are with you, you have a good time. When the groom is gone, the fasting can begin. No one throws cold water on a friendly bonfire. This is kingdom come. No one cuts up a fine silk scarf to patch old work clothes. You want fabrics that match. And you don't put wine in old, cracked bottles. You get strong, clean bottles for your fresh vintage wine. And no one who has ever tasted fine aged wine prefers unaged wine. On a certain Sabbath, Jesus was walking through a field of ripe grain. His disciples were pulling off heads of grain, rubbing them in their hands to get rid of the chaff, and eating them. Some Pharisees said, why are you doing that, breaking the Sabbath rule? But Jesus stood up for them. Have you never read that David and those with him did what when they were hungry? How he entered the sanctuary and ate fresh bread off the altar, bread that no one but priests were allowed to eat. He also handed it out to his companions. Then he said, the Son of Man is no slave to the Sabbath. He's in charge. On another Sabbath, he went to the meeting place and taught. There was a man there with a crippled right hand. The religion scholars and Pharisees had their eyes on Jesus to see if he would heal the man. Hoping to catch him in a Sabbath violation, he knew what they were up to and spoke to the man with the crippled hand. Get up, stand here before us. He did. Then Jesus addressed them. Let me ask you something. What kind of action suits the Sabbath best? Doing good or doing evil? Helping people or leaving them helpless? He looked around, looked each one in the eye. He said to the man, hold your hand out. He held it out. It was as good as new. They were beside themselves with anger and started plotting how they might get even with him. Psalm chapter 66, verse 1 through verse 20. All together now. Applause for God. Sing songs to the tribe and to the tune of his glory. Set glory to the rhythms of his praise. Say, God of God, we've never seen anything like him. When your enemies see you in action, they slink off like scolded dogs. The whole earth falls to its knees to worship, to sing to you. Can't stop enjoying your name and fame. Take a good look at God's wonders. They'll take your breath away. He converted sea to dry land. Travelers crossed the river on foot. Now, isn't that cause for a song? Ever sovereign in his high tower, he keeps his eyes on the godless nations. Rebels don't dare raise a finger against him. Bless our God, O peoples. Give him a thunderous welcome. Didn't he set us on the road to life? Didn't he keep us out of the ditch? He trains us first, passed us like silver through refining fires, brought us into hard scrabbled country, pushed us into our very limit, road tested us inside and out, took us to hell and back. Finally, he brought us to this well-watered place. I'm bringing my prizes and presents to your house. I'm doing what I said I'll do, what I solemnly swore I'd do, that day when I was in so much trouble. The choicest cuts of meat for the sacrificial meal. Even the fragrance of roasted lamb is like a meal. Or make it an ox garnished with goat meat. All believers, come here and listen. Let me tell you what God did for me. I called out to him with my mouth. My tongue shaped the sound of music. If I had been cozy with evil, the Lord would never have listened. But he most surely did listen. He came on the double when he heard my prayer. Blessed be God. He didn't turn a deaf ear. He stayed with me, loyal in his love. Proverbs chapter 11, verse 24 through verse 26. The Lord of the generous gets larger and larger. The world of the stingy gets smaller and smaller. The one who blesses others is abundantly blessed. Those who help others are helped. Curses on those who drive a hard bargain. Blessings on all who play fair and square. Bible in a Year, the Message Version, daily reading for March 23.